Okay, this is we're back with the Tuesday Night Swiss. This is the July edition after wrapping up the June. I know there's no video for the last game of the June round. I did analyze it. I just did not have time to record a video of it. That was a round five loss for the White Pieces against Matthew Wesley, um, meaning that I ended the June with 3 out of 5 with three wins in the first 3 rounds, and then losing twice in a row. I still gained 120 rating from that, so that's quite good. Beat some very strong opponents, and so I was happy with that. But yeah, very tough last round loss. So we're entering the new month of July, the clean slate. Also getting into some chess books in preparation for my uh, upcoming tournament at Bradley International Airport in Madras, Connecticut, which will be a continental chess major tournament. One of their $10,000 prize pool tournaments. Looking forward to that. That'll be a 5 round, pretty intense 3 day tournament. So that's in a few weeks. But for now, we're playing Tuesday Night Swiss, and today we are up against Ethan-Michael, uh, who I believe the June was his first tournament, I believe. And in that one, he did quite well actually. He won 4 games in a row, including mostly against 13, 1400, 1500 level opposition. And so I thought, okay, he's probably just around my rating. But yeah, he had a very strong performance last month, and so I was coming into this expecting a pretty tough fight. Um, and so yeah, this is the game. Um, we had a d45 at Queen's Gambit. We had a Slav defense with 3 knights, which is bishop f5. And I'm not entirely sure um, what the best move is in this position, but I thought Queen b3 was quite practical. Putting pressure on the 2 pawns. Obviously, you can't. I mean, there's nothing here yet. Um, but it's annoying down the road, especially if I dislodge some of the pieces. So I thought Queen b3. I mean, he reacted pretty interestingly. Queen b6. I feel like just kind of forces me to open this. Because typically, when you see these kind of opposing queens, you want to get taken so you can open the A file for your rook. And he puts it in a position where he has to open my A file because when I take, if you don't take, I just win a pawn. So he takes, and then takes with the pawn. I think maybe he had a better option with knight takes d5 here. There's no fork because you can just take like here, and then it lose the pawn. But I thought this position had a lot of play. I think I could maybe take here and then try to go for this loose pawn, but I mean it's very solid. I didn't really see a way to get much here. Um, Definitely the main play is along the open A file though. But yeah, so I thought knight takes d5 would have been a better try for him. Something like this. My physical position is a lot friendlier. Because what we end up getting is after the pawn take that knight b5 immediately, threatening this fork and this pawn. Now the A file is open, and so actually I can just win a pawn right now, which is nice. Because my double B pawns are pretty bad. So winning a pawn is good confrontation. Here goes king d8. There is no knight a6 in this line because of the rook sacrifice, where I just win the rook anyway. Uh, although in this variant, I think the knight does get trapped. Although maybe not. I'm not entirely sure. Because if you go here, the knight gets out. But it's still strange. Because now he's still kind of stuck. But there's never really a way out. So yeah, so that's why knight six isn't playable. Because the rook sacrificing coming. So king d8 instead. But note that also leaves this fork open. And you'll see soon enough after bishop f4, targeting this knight, which could then allow for rook infiltration on the A file. And to cover, he actually comes all the way back to 98. And so after all this time, I have 3 pieces developed, and he has 1. And this knight's over here. So I thought I had a pretty favorable position here already, by move 9. Pawn is hanging. I can take this and infiltrate with the rook. Something simple like e3, move the knight, and get the bishop in. I thought I had a lot of play here. Um, 95, targeting this, forcing him to bring the bishop back to one of these two squares. He comes back to g6, and I kind of like got to this position and wasn't entirely sure what I could do anymore. Like I knew the pawn is hanging. I can get the bishop there and take the pawn if I wanted. That would open his h file. And his king cannot move forward. You can only go here. And so with all that in mind, I took some time to think of a maneuver, and I didn't find anything good, so I just took the pawn. And I thought I can just win the pawn and be happy. This block doesn't really work. You can come back, knight b5, e6 getting the bishop active, and e3 getting my bishop active. I can come back with the knight now. I feel like the knight has served its purpose, being on b5 at this point. His knights cover all of the key squares, for my knight to kind of get around in. This pawn is covering the square too. The rook is here, and so I think my knight is kind of like expired over here, and so I'm fine then coming back. Um, Knight e2-7. I was really confused with this move because there is no knight b5 adding pressure. The bishop covers the diagonal, and he said after the game that he was torn between knight c7 and knight d6, but he thought that in this variation, there are issues on f7. But even if because of takes, but this is defended by the bishop, and this also defends the f7 square. So I think this is an oversight by him. Knight e7 is quite poor because this knight has very little prospects, and we'll have to reroute, and he can't reroute through his own pawns. So knight e7 was interesting. I still wanted this f7 square, or at least to weaken the kingside structure. So I went h4 here. He can't really go h6 or h5. So when I take here, this is much worse than taking with the h pawn because the rook opens up immediately. But in this case, you don't want this to be the structure because this is just miserable. I can immediately like come here and just go for the weakness. I'm not even with check. I don't even have to go with check. I can just go here, and this pawn is going to fall. There's no way to defend it already. Like this just hangs the rook. So yeah. So f6 has to be played then. Only move. And f6. I was torn between taking here now even because I thought once again I get the bishop pair, and go for this pawn, but this actually doesn't really work nearly as well. But you can just get here and kind of like cocoon the position a bit. And like, I can't really get back here. I have to be here, which I can do. But even then, this knight is here, and the knight's defends the knight, so I can never really get to this square. He also could go king e7. Yeah, I didn't really like this without my knight being here already. Also, I guess like this is good because this can be targeted over here. Like if I like king e2, and he starts to like reroute his knights. Or yeah, king. But the problem is now even like the king needs a couple moves to get around. And so in the meantime, he can just kind of. Sorry, this doesn't work. You can't move this knight anymore because the rook hangs. I mean, it's still hard for black to defend. I think black still can't defend this pawn. But at least like, and the king looks pretty weak. But I wasn't really sure if I liked this position. I also didn't calculate this deep, in game, because I was just thought, okay, well I can just come back and then force the trade on my terms. But otherwise, I mean, okay, you don't have to trade. You can just leave. You can come back here if you want. But I thought that was bad. I thought I could just like if he goes back here, I thought I could like take here. You have to take. You have to take. You can take with the king, I guess. But you're giving me a lot of activity. You have to take with here. The knight's in the corner, which is just miserable. And I have the knight here, and I can, or even like I don't have to do that. I can just go here and target the weakness that way. Knight f4, targeting this pawn, forcing him to go like over here, which I can then run into uh, some g4 and h5, and I'm cascading on the king side while his knight's in the corner of the board. Uh, so so he takes here, which I think is good. I think is correct. But it activates my bishop, which is in a really nice square. It's like the London square for the bishop. So pretty ideal here. Cutting off the knight from entering, preventing these pawns from really coming forward because of pawn breaks. And yeah, I like to put it right here. And so yeah, king e7, defense the center, but also like the king is safe, so there's no queens or anything. But I'd go g. I didn't really see any plan on the queen side because of how well these knights defend each other. Like it's just like symbiosis. And this pawn is not really targetable because they have to get on these squares for the knight bishop covers. So I thought I could just attack on the king side because he has no way to get his knights over there without like decoupling them. If he goes like back here, this knight is decoupled. And there's some positions where it's too weak, and if you move this one first, this one hangs, and so yeah, there's a lot of interesting ideas here. But actually, so I go g4. But when I go g4, actually, I realized that he has a pretty insane idea because the king is cutting off the rook's connection. I think he had knight c5. When I showed him that after the game, he didn't even see it as a possibility. But at d5, I was not a fan of that position at all. So the thing is, I cannot take the knight. They lose the rook and the other rook. If I take the rook, he takes the bishop with a check, and then I can come forward. And then so so I'll show you. Like if takes, take with check, come here, come here, come here. And I didn't like that. After I takes, the rook is in, or not yet. The rook's not in yet because the knight hangs. But the knight's in. And if I get too greedy here and it's like push, you can take, and the rook is just infiltrating, and I'm losing a lot of space. Like, it feels like my pieces are just kind of like stuck now, and he has good control. However, he is still down a pawn though, and I have my pawns undoubled now, which is an interesting prospect in that variation. I don't have to take the rook though. I can also just go like something like king e2. By that, I thought he could just take the pawn, and I just lose the pawn. So yeah, so I mean, after knight take b3, I was just not a fan of this. I didn't like that his knight was in. I didn't like that he had control of the a file. I thought I had to like break open something quickly. This pawn does hang, I guess, but it looks kind of scary, but there's not really a way to get trapped. But still, takes, and the rook is in, and this doesn't feel very safe. It is objectively safe, because the pawn structure is solid. The bishop can cover the square. The rook can get around, and I have the extra pawn still. But it didn't feel like from back here. It didn't feel like it was a very safe position to be in. And so I was quite worried about knight c5. He doesn't find knight c5. He goes h6 instead. In h6, I guess I don't know if it's looking for g5 or trying to prevent. I don't know, because my plan to break through works regardless of if he has h6 in the board or not. I get out of the pin now, king e2. My idea is to get the knight over to the king side, continue the king side attack, and he brings his rook to c8. I think he told me after that he thought that his knight was less defended than it looks. It's very safe. The bishop can come back to cover it. The knight covers itself. This knight never has to move, but it also doesn't do anything. So I guess that's like why he was kind of miffed about it. Um, but yeah, this was not really necessary as a move, and it gave me time to play g5 without really anything stopping it here. This partial breakthrough opens the H file for me, which immediately, is kind of sounding the alarms. These knights can't get over there at all. It'll take quite a while. So I can get rook h7 on the board. But actually, I think I might have gone or rushed a bit too here with rook h7. I think maybe like bishop e5 first. I'm not entirely sure. I didn't. Well, I didn't really like the bishop after rook h7 too much. But bishop e5, I was kind of struggling to see what he would do exactly. Because now, like, if you go if you go here, I can kind of like redo the move order a bit, and push g6, kind of locking the king out from the defense here. And if he wants to defend, he has to go on f8, and then I can kind of get both rooks in and look for some sort of winning attack. But rook h7 kind of rushes it a bit, and now I can't go g6 because I would just lose it. I was contemplating some method to get g6 to work, but there's no way for me to get the bishop on the diagonal to cut off the return, so it didn't really work. So bishop e5 in this order allows rook g8, king f6 in this kind of structure, which is a lot better. And I was contemplating here because his next move, is going to be just get in here and take. So I was like contemplating f4. When I think maybe going f4 first is better. But I went king f3, which prevented f4 from being played. But I also didn't like that f4 might like force that bishop to get traded off, if it can be tradable. But yeah, I wonder if f4, I can just kind of like pile the rooks here, get g6 from the board, and if he comes forward, it isn't takeable anymore. And I just kind of look for like some infiltration. It's not easy, that's for sure. But this pawn looks very weak. And I was eyeing some some maneuver, maybe takes, and then like knight b5. But if a takes, then here, I don't know, like here, and if here, and if here, you just take them, same thing. Maybe, I'm not entirely sure. But yeah, maybe I don't know. But king f3 allows for king g6, and now there's not really like maybe like king f4 here. But I kind of just thought like I mean the rook is hanging is the issue, and actually here I have it starred in my notes because I went rook h1 here, just defending the rook. But I was kind of contemplating like rook g1, and I just sacked the rook completely because obviously you can't go here if this is mate. So you have to come forward. But when you come forward, I can come here and here, and the king is all the way in the front. If you go back here, I can take this pawn, and your only move is to take here. And then I can take this pawn too. It's check again. And then when you come like over here, you just get chased around. Is the rook trapped here actually? Okay, maybe you don't get this greedy with bishop e5. You do this instead, and you go here, and then it's it's kind of end of the line for the king. Like he's up a lot of material, but he's getting mated. Like I think this is his mate. I don't really know how you stop this. The king can't move. You can go like yeah, I think this is forced mate. If you go here, no, the king might be safe actually. Yeah. I didn't do this. I didn't calculate. I couldn't calculate all the way in a way that I was happy with just giving up a full rook for. Uh, so, um, yeah, I just wasn't like 100% confident. It's like I couldn't bring myself to do it. But it might have been doable. I'm not entirely sure. So I'm not really sure what you can do here as black. Like maybe here, and then when I come here, it's covered. Yeah, I think it's safe actually. The king might be safe. I can't really move this without losing the other rook too. So yeah, despite him having no legal moves, um, it's not mate. So probably bad to not have done that. So I went here instead and just gave up the pawn. Um, Even here, I actually you can go like here, and then I was even thinking like this in this position, but this covers the like this is not the right position to be in. Or even like not even trying to defend this, just going like here and then here. I was kind of eyeballing this as well, but once again, the G6 line just the king can't move. Um, but after like king G1, you just move the rook out of the way, and there's no mate. The king is quite safe. I think maybe you can get a piece back because of but maybe not if you put the rook in the right square. Put the rook here instead. Back here, 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 here. There's no longer any anything, and you're just down to exchange. Um, so yeah, all those rook stacks, I was liking them. I just done like exercises in one of my books, and there was a lot of like open line sacrifices win the game. Uh, but I couldn't bring myself to do it, which is probably good. It wasn't good. um, Brought the rook back. He fled with the king, targeted this weak knight, forcing him to defend it somehow or move it. But if he moves it, then this is like a bad structure to be in. Um, he brings the rook up here. 56 is threatening b4. If I go b4 now, I can just take it. This doesn't get undefended because this bishop hangs as well. I can maybe go here first, then he can also just take. And then like there's no, it's the bishop is too loose. So this props up b4. And also I'm happy to get rid of this bishop now because my pawns are on dark squares, and so not having a dark square bishop in the endgame is going to be pretty tough to win these pawns. Meanwhile, his light squares, my bishop is pretty good here. So knight f4, kind of looking at 96, 94, 95. I wanted to get into 95 somehow. That's kind of like obvious, like backwards pawn. This knight is so many moves away from covering it. Like 4 moves. This knight is 3 moves away from covering it. And three like impossible moves, Um, and so actually, I was fucking wondering for a while why he didn't get knight before. Knight before has been playable for a while. Now that the bishops are on, and it looks pretty good. Covering this knight. I wasn't really sure what I'd do here. Maybe like come back to square. But I don't know. I thought like it's annoying to get my bishop active anymore once this happens. But I don't know. I'm not entirely sure. Like this, putting this rook here is probably good. But yeah, but he goes G5. But just looks like I just blundered because I would have to move and get forked. But I mean, there's a check here first. Pretty difficult. When you push your king pawns and have an open file. My rook gets in. He goes to d6, which I thought was a questionable move because he is now in jail. uh, which I would not have done to my king. I think he said that maybe king f6 is probably better. But I don't know if he like didn't like. I don't know, I think I'd probably just like take here, and then if you have to take with the knight, I was take with the pawn. I just take. And this is equal, but I'm up 2 pawns. And they're both outside, and they can just go. I mean, yeah, to check the knight here, and then I come here, and I'm going to the square anyway. So, king d6. When I come to the square, we'll see it, and we'll see it in a bit. I take here first, take the pawn, but this is safe now. But the king's defending the knight, and I get my reroute. But first, he threatens to trade the rooks off. I make sure that happens on my terms. With me controlling this outline, because this still, after the knight gets here, the king has no escape, and the pawn is defending, which means that there's mate threats. He goes a5, which I thought was just kind of like useless. Like it prevents knight b4, but it's not where I'm going. It's very obvious I'm going knight e5. I think maybe a better try is like king c6 now, just kind of running away. And now I like I look for a way to set up here, but going knight e5 doesn't work anymore. You can just run all the way up here, and you're threatening to win the pawns. And it's quite difficult here to find a win for white. You have to go for these weaknesses, but this is covered. This is covered. There's a very strong knight here in c7 as well, and these pawns might just fall. But he goes a5 instead of king c6, which allows knight e5. Now this is mate. This is a pretty classic Arabian mate, which is also something I was studying earlier, which is a pretty cool find to have it in game, actually. I think my first ever game, over the board game, ended with an Arabian mate like this in the middle of the board, which is pretty cool. First on a check, and then he has to give up the rook to prevent the mate. This walks right into the fork with the rook. King is cut off on the back rank. I can grab a pawn, but that lets the king out. It's still kind of difficult here. I thought for a while that there's some ways that I could infiltrate, and then this extra pawn here, 4-on-3, felt like a threat with the king pretty close to the pawns. But e5 gave me enough time to pin the knight to the king, and then pushing. And this pawn is pretty close now. And then f4, I think it's just like the last blunder, because I can just take the pawn now. I'm sure it's already losing, but you can just take the pawn now. And then with the second pawn, you can't take because it's an attraction sacrifice. And I can just sack the rook now, and I have two passers on opposite sides, so you can't stop them both. And these sides here. There's no way to stop the pawn anymore, which is the end of the game. So yeah, a great first game of July. I thought I was pretty in control the whole time. There may be some moments where I kind of like let go a bit, let it go of the gas a bit. Something like for Kid 7, I think it was too fast actually, and I had to do this a little slower, preventing the king from escaping and keeping the pressure. But the pressure was on the whole time for him. I don't think I really gave him any chance to breathe after knight b5, and he's kind of on the back foot for a really long time. On the back foot, even to the point where I felt okay just giving this pawn away completely. I thought the open lines would be too strong. And actually, they weren't exactly the reason. Getting rid of that pawn, I don't think was good, actually. I wouldn't really capitalize off of it very much. I capitalized off of this positioning of the king, and the knight reroute that comes just in time. He can even take here, but it's very difficult now. Yeah, this is checkmate. The king can't move. So you have to go like here and lose the rook. Another issue with having the king on d6. But yeah, I was pretty pleased with this game. I thought I played really well. Found the tactics when it mattered. Positionally, tried to hold them down, and then just cleanly ended up with a winning endgame. So yeah, good start to the tournament. I don't know who I'll be playing next week. I'll check the pairing soon. But yeah, looking forward to game 2 and another strong opponent, hopefully, to get ready for my major in at Bradley. So yeah, until next week. See ya.